In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. In the comment section on a couple of videos, I've been asked, when dealing with masculinity, what are my thoughts on femininity or women, and how are they supposed to develop themselves? And so it's interesting, we did the last video on why many boys don't become men, and I think it's fitting that we do a video then on why many girls don't become women. You know, to do this and to tackle this is in some ways more complex than men, but I think that there are three fundamental aspects to women that we could touch on that would highlight the changes and the developments and the maturation that needs to take place in order to move a woman or move a young woman into womanhood. Number one, boys and girls are very different. If you look at a little girl, her affection and attention for her father is immediate from the time that, she's very young, even, an infant, and certainly within the first 3 months to 6 months, she's very attached and very kind of intuitively connected to her father. My experience with boys is that they tend to be less interested in their dads. They love their dads, but they really love their moms. And in fact, oftentimes for that first kind of 2 to 3 years, maybe as far as 4 years, they're very mom focused in terms of where they want to get their attention and their affection from and their connection. And then they move very hard into looking for affirmation from their father. Girls are different. Girls want to have a connection with their father. They want to have an emotional connection. They want to receive attention from them. It's very natural for them. Boys are looking less for attention, but they're looking very much for affirmation. They want to know what they're doing is good. They want to know that their dad respects them, that he thinks their efforts are worthy of praise, right? A boy bases a lot of who he sees himself on how his dad sees him. That aspect is true for girls also. But for girls, it's more the attention of who they are, right? I remember hearing a funny story about a husband and wife, and the husband grew up in a family, I think it was predominantly boys, and the girl grew up in a family that was predominantly girls. I think it was 3 girls, and they ended up having some miscommunication in their marriage, so they go to this therapist, and one of the things the therapist asked them is, well, to the husband, what did your dad do to show love? And he said, well, my dad fixed everything around the house. Any projects, anything that my mom needed tackling, he tackled. So this is what he was doing in his marriage. So she says, okay. She says to the woman, she says, what did your dad do growing up? She said, every day my dad got home from work, he would sit down with me and my 2 sisters and my mom, and he would have tea time with us. And he would listen to us and talk with us. We often forget that men need a lot of shoulder time, meaning that we need a task that we're trying to accomplish, arm in arm, brother to brother with another man. Women need a lot of face time. They want to kind of connect on, I wouldn't say it's an emotional level, it's a deep interpersonal level. They kind of want to look into you, and they want you to kind of look into them, and they want to be deemed worthy of this attention. We know that this is true when we see girls who did not have enough attention as a child. They are constantly, forever, the rest of their life, looking for that attention and affirmation from men. So, for a girl to move from being a girl to a young woman or a girl, young woman to a woman, what does she need to do? Number one, it's a best case scenario that when she's younger, she gets the majority of her attention from her father. When she moves into being a young woman, she begins to shift that dynamic, and she begins to develop more of a relationship with God through prayer, through the sacraments, through going to confession. She begins to realize that God is interested in her even more than her own father is. God is the lover of mankind, and he desires to deeply connect with us. For a young woman, she needs to start making that transition so that when she moves into adulthood, when she becomes a woman, she's not looking for everyone to validate her and to be the primary focus of how she receives that attention. You can see this in a marriage when the marriage burns out, because a lot of times women go into a marriage looking for a man to kind of fulfill that desire for attention, that longing for connection that only God can fulfill. Now, God fulfills part of it. I would say he always needs to really be filling the majority, like minimum 51% of our needs and wants and desires. But a woman finds the majority of her attention and affirmation from God. She does this through prayer, through connecting with the readings of the saints, the lives of the saints. She receives this through being in the services, through being prayerful, from receiving the sacraments, and then from connecting with her spiritual father. These are the ways in which she needs to primarily orient herself to get that affirmation and that connection from God. Then she receives affirmation, affection, and attention from her husband. But her husband, because he's only human, can only give her so much. And then the remaining bit comes from her children. When it gets out of order, when God is not first, a human being is designed to receive the majority of their attention from God. When they don't have that and they look for it in another person, it's like you're trying to put a block into a space that's too big. And so then it makes that emptiness around the block even more acute. And so many times people actually try to fill themselves with other people, and they end up feeling more empty. They end up feeling burned out. They end up feeling exhausted. Why? Because the person is not supposed to fulfill you the way that God is. That's number one. That desire for women to connect emotionally, interpersonally, to gaze into you and to be gazed into is totally normal and healthy and beautiful and wonderful, but it has to be directed primarily to God by the time a girl reaches adulthood and into marriage. Number two, women have powerful emotions. This cannot be overstated. I'll tell a very quick funny story, but several years ago, I was taking a medication, and that medication ended up raising my estrogen levels, and I didn't know it. I was unaware of it at the time because, your body's doing a process in kind of the background and you don't know what's happening. I was sitting at my desk at work and I was watching a television show or something while I was doing paperwork at the end of the day, and I got immersed and I started looking at it, and it was so powerful, it was sad, and I started to think to myself, I'm gonna crawl under my desk at work and I'm just gonna cry here for a minute. And the minute that I had that thought, it was like a red siren went off. It was like, blaring in my head, like, what are you doing? You're a man. You don't crawl under your desk at work and cry because you're feeling something super deep. And I realized at that moment, something's off. There's something hormonally going on, because this is not normal behavior. What it showed me, which I had never known before, was that my emotional spectrum is like this. It's kind of black and white in some ways, like it's only so much, whereas women's emotional spectrums are much broader. This is just a reality. Women feel and experience things in a much deeper, more intuitive sense. Is it better than men? No. Is it more insightful in some ways? Yes. When when women are interacting with children, they can often read the minutia of how a child is feeling and intuit what's going on in a way that a husband is completely oblivious to. I mean, this is why when my wife talks to me about the kids, I listen. My wife has brilliant insights into our children because she's very intuitive emotionally with how they're doing and where they're coming from and what they're doing. This is a beautiful thing. Women have been given these emotions kind of in technicolor, as it were. They have a deep sense of the world. They actually have, what the Holy Fathers talk about, we have our heart, which is our nous, the eye of our soul. Men oftentimes are very much living in their heads. They're very rationalistic. They're deductive. They're observational, right? They kind of sometimes even have a cold approach to life in the world. Women, because they're able to kind of see things in almost like a technicolor, are actually able to tap into the deeper parts of their soul more easily. I think this is part of the reason that women naturally tend to just be more spiritual than men. That's a reality. I mean, that's just a reality. Women tend to be able to connect with God because they're able to kind of connect and see all the things that are going on inside of them. You know, ever since I had that experience at work, I mean, it just broadened my respect for women, and to the fact that they were experiencing something I wasn't even aware that they were experiencing. I didn't know women experience. I mean, you think, oh, women are emotional. They're not just emotional. They have this, it's almost like a superpower of really sensing and feeling the world in a deep way. All of that to say that emotional awareness is not a good compass. I believe that when St. Paul says that women are the weaker of the sexes, he does not mean that women are inferior to men at all. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that the woman's strength, meaning her emotional awareness, is also many times her downfall and her weakness because she relies on it in order to navigate the world. And the reality is, women were not intended to navigate the world without men. Likewise, men were not intended to navigate the world without women. There are so many times that I am dealing with things at church, with the children, with other people, whatever else. You know, something happens that's public, right? And I ask my wife, give me your insight on this. This happened, whatever else. Her insight is invaluable. It's invaluable. She sees things that I just simply do not see. That's the sign of somebody who's more advanced than you. Likewise, when she has all these emotions that are clamoring for her attention and are giving her all this information, right? It's almost like data overload. I think a lot of times women fall into that paralysis by analysis because they're actually soaking in so much of the world. When that happens to them, they don't know what to do, and they're honestly almost always looking for the perfect answer. Now, when you're analytic like a man and you're kind of in little ways a little divorced from your feelings, you realize that there aren't perfect answers, just answers. You've just got to make decisions and keep moving forward. This is why women desperately need into womanhood a husband or a spiritual father who's able to guide and direct them. This is in particular very powerful for women to have a spiritual father because they know the spiritual father is not, in a sense, looking for anything from them. He's neutral. He loves them. He cares about them. You know, women often have a type of distrust regarding their husband, especially sometimes in the first few years, because they're concerned that he's going to use that, her needs for him or desires for him, kind of in a sense to get his own ends. That's a separate video, but just to touch on that for a moment. That's number 2. A woman needs the help of a man to navigate her emotional landscape and make the best possible decisions. Number 3, and this one is super important, women need to move from being self-oriented to oriented towards others. This is the same exact thing for men. It's the same exact thing. The primary difference is that a man, in a sense, goes out to battle every day. He goes out to the coal mine. He goes and works to provide for the family. He has to enter into this path, whereas a woman actually needs to use her abilities to basically take the raw material that her husband gives her and turn it into something wonderful, right? We often use that analogy that the husband buys a house, the woman makes it a home, right? The husband helps to bring children into the world, but the wife, she makes it a family. She connects everyone together. She makes the meals. She plans the activities. She does all these things that just, women are phenomenal at this. I mean, they make, in so many ways, women make life worth, I don't want to say living, but they make life so much better. I mean, I cannot even imagine a life without my wife, right? She's the single most important person in my life. By far, there's no one that's even a close second. This, though, requires a woman to enter into a very kind of extreme path of self-denial. Why do I say it's extreme? Because it's very hard. The life of denying yourself for a woman typically involves having children. And having children is incredibly ascetical. I think people see the videos of me and they're like, oh, father's strong. He lifts weights. He can bench press over 450 pounds. He's got these abilities. Listen, I am not as tough as my wife. I'm just not. My wife has been nursing babies, sleep deprived, cultivating them, nursing them, doing all these things for the better part of 10 years. And being pregnant with 5 babies and having 2 C-sections and recovering from C-sections and going through and carrying babies almost every single day. Like, guys have these things on Instagram. Hey, I'm going rucking today. I got a 20-pound ruck. I'm going to go ruck for 30 minutes. It's like, bro, my wife carried a 28-pound baby for 5 hours today. Like, we're not in the same realm as women. We're just not. And the crazy part is women will do all this when they have a good attitude. They will do all this and just somehow miraculously just think it's not even almost a big deal. Like they'll just do it. They'll do it out of their love and service for somebody else. That is the meaning, purpose, trajectory that a woman needs to be on. She needs to have children in order to bring about, this meaning and purpose in her life that she's longing for. But the meaning and purpose is not somebody filling her. And this is where sometimes when women are moving from being a young woman into womanhood, is having children is not about them giving you stuff. Having children is about you giving them a life, an experience, love, protection, cultivation, nourishment. It's outward facing. And again, this is the same thing in the video about men, which is we all have to find a purpose where we are serving the other people around us. And as Christ said, he came to serve, not to be served. Those are the 3 things that a woman needs to work on if she's going to move from being a young woman or a girl into womanhood. She needs to find her affirmation and her attention primarily from God. She needs to, I forgot what the second one is. She needs to learn how to navigate her emotional landscape with direction from a man. And number 3, she needs to pour her life out for her children, for her family, in order to cultivate a loving environment that only she can build. And it's incredible. My utmost respect and love to my wife and to all the mothers out there who work tirelessly in their striving as a woman, bringing about so much love and joy into the world. God bless you.